brute force. If it doesn't work, you're just not using enough. You're listening to SOFREP Radio, special operations military news, and straight talk with the guys in the community.
Hey, what's going on? This is Rad with another awesome episode of SOFREP Radio, and you have tuned in to a very special show today. But first, before I introduce my next guest, I want to tell you to go check out our merch store. That's right. Callum, put something on the bottom right here so people can just click on it or read that they can go to our sofrep.com/merch and you can go check out all of our sofrep.com branded shirts, mugs, all of the cool stuff that you guys are tagging us with. I love to see it. Please continue to tag us with SOFREP Mafia. Second, we have a book club, and it is curated by the special operators behind the scenes here at sofrep.com for you who loves this content. So go check out sofrep.com/book-club. That's sofrep.com/book-club. Yeah, that's all in my head. There's nothing here telling me to say that. I have to remember all of this. This is how we roll. Now, today's guest is so renowned to me. I can respect everything on this individual's resume. Robert Adolph, welcome to the show of SOFREP Radio.
Thank you so much.
Now, do you like to be just referred to as retired Lieutenant Colonel, Special Forces, Green Beret? Is that the case? What was your last military rank when you got out?
Lieutenant Colonel. I started out as a private.
Oh, you bucked your way up the whole system.
I made staff sergeant in, 1975 and went to OCS in 1976.
Is that right? And then Aaron, Rad, was being born in 1977.
Yes, I'm that old.
No, I love it. I love it. Did you have a stint in Vietnam then? Did you do any deployments to that?
I actually was in Special Forces training when the 5th Special Forces Group closed up shop and came home from Vietnam. I volunteered to go, but the Army, in its infinite wisdom, as they always do, sent me to Fort Devens, Massachusetts, a 30-minute drive from my hometown.
Of course.
Of course they did.
Of course, just right next door. You know,
Exactly.
So you can go get that breakfast that you love every morning from the diner down the street.
Exactly.
They didn't want you to lose a step in that process. Now, Robert, just a little touch on your resume here. I'm going to read it, and I want my listener to follow along. And this is part of the show, is to introduce you and talk about your background. And you have quite the resume, so please give me a few moments to read through this. And my listener, thanks for listening along, and here we go, okay? So, Robert Bruce Adolph. He's an international speaker, author, commentator, consultant. Let me take these glasses off to read this better. Pizzazzle Cardinal Council. Let's see here. Here we go. Let's see here. Retired U.S. Army Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel and UN Chief Security Advisor, familiar with Europe, Asia Pacific, Middle East, and North Africa, as well as Sub-Saharan Africa. Served in both field and headquarters assignments, divided among the following specialties. Peacekeeping, serving on 4 such missions: senior security and crisis disaster management, threat vulnerability and risk assessment, investigations, civil military operations and post-conflict environments, conflict resolution, information collection, trend analysis, and incident reporting and response. Successful in the most senior UN supervisory assignment at the installation, country, sub-regional, and regional levels, established INGO security forums in multiple countries, qualified UN trainer of trainers, experienced cross-cultural communicator, well practiced at dealing independently with host government, police, security forces, former university lecturer on American history and government, lived and worked in 17 different countries, spent 14 years in the region of the Middle East, visiting every Arab country, authored over 300 published articles, commentaries, essays, and book reviews. Most publications are listed on his website at, let me say that correctly, robertbruceadolph.com. And we'll have that put down in the breakdown of this website so people can just click on this podcast. Let me continue to read here, though. Professional experience. International speaker, published the well-reviewed book entitled Surviving the United Nations, a true story of violence, corruption, betrayal, and redemption, which is now in its 2nd edition currently. And he's currently writing another book, okay? So he gave the keynote address on artificial intelligence, humanity, and unfettered capitalism at a conference on the future of technology at the London School of Economics and Political Science in 2024. Also gave presentations on various topics at George Washington University in DC, Netherlands Atlantic Commissions at The Hague, New York University, of course, in Manhattan, World Affairs Conference in Florida, and the European University Institute in Florence, and more. He's published dozens of newspapers and magazine commentaries in Europe and the US, served as advisor to the graduate program in international affairs and world politics, for the University of Pavia. Interviewed by BBC and Italian News, National Public Radio, UN Today, and SOFREP right now, SOFREP Radio, as we're interviewing Robert. He's also the UNDP Security Consulate in Azerbaijan in 2023. He's the OSCE security expert and team leader in Kiev, Ukraine in 2022. He conducted personal on-site reconnaissance, assessing the residual dangers within the invasion corridor used by the Russian Federation Armed Forces northwest of Kiev. Habitat for Humanity International Security Consulate in Lebanon in 2018, where he conducted and tailored security assessments, accomplished training needs and assessments, and provided advice on the writing and formal security plan and more. He's the UN Chief Security Advisor in Indonesia between 2012 and 2014, where he led a large security staff of internationals and nationals through 3 security regions and 8 local offices in support of 28 UN agencies, funds, and programs in 39 project sites throughout the country. He's the Chief Middle East and North African Region UNHQ New York for 2010-2012. He deployed on missions multiple times to hazardous zones of conflict, including Iraq, Libya, Yemen, and Syria under that title. Head of Safety and Security for the UNRWA, which is the UNRWA, I believe is how it's said.
Correct.
Palestine, Amman, Jordan, from 2008 to 2010. He wrote, presented, and saw through to approval and complete recognition of the security standards of UNRWA. Trained a security staff where none previously existed in Gaza, West Bank, Syria, Jordan, and Lebanon, while also successfully justifying an expanded security budget. And he volunteered and subsequently served in the Gaza Strip after Operation Cast Lead. Just that right there, I have so many questions, but I'm going to continue with your resume, okay? UN Security Advisor for Egypt in Cairo, 2004 to 2008. Wow, that's really wow. Okay, I'm just going to say wow, right? You built a country security office from the ground up, hiring and training all security staff, conducted the UN investigations of the Shram al-Sheikh, Dab, Khan al-Khalili, and North Sinai suicide bombings.
Yes.
I hope I said those names kind of correctly, okay? You created the Egypt International Security Forum. I'm going to continue. UN Chief of Security for Iraq, Baghdad, 2003 to 2004. That's some heavy times, man. Led the first UN security mission back into Iraq during the time of active combat. Mosul, Al-Halil, Basra, Baghdad. Appointed officers in charge, directly supervised life-saving activities at the time of the suicide bombing attack that killed 22 and wounded more than 150. I think that is the anniversary is today of that bombing, correct?
Today is the anniversary of that event.
That is. And we're going to get into your book, which kind of touches on that. So just give me a few more moments. I'm going to burn through your resume. Wow, dude. Chief Field Security Officer for Yemen, 2000 to 2003, he created the INGO Security Forum there, consulted confidentially on several tribal kidnappings with no loss of life, aided Scotland Yard in the wake of the UK embassy bombing, and dealt successfully with violence in Somalia at the refugee camp. You're the Chief Security Officer in Sierra Leone's UN Peacekeeping from 99 to 2000, conducted a successful emergency rotary and fixed wing evacuation of over 200 staff when Freetown was invaded by the brutal Revolutionary United Front, the RUF. Holy cow. And assisted in the recovery of over 500 Zambian battalion prisoner detainees from the RUF, consulted successfully on an INGO double kidnapping. Man, sir, your education, you have a master's in national security studies and strategy, U.S. Army Command and General Staff College, an MA Internal Affairs, Middle East Studies, American University School of Internal Service at Washington, D.C. You have a Bachelor's of Science in Sociology, New York University, Albany. You have additional considerations such as adjunct faculty teaching world politics, U.S. government, American history, foreign affairs, and more at several U.S. colleges and universities. UNTAC Chief, UNICOM Chief of Current Operations in the DMZ between Iraq and Kuwait, the UNTSO Military Observer in Egypt, policy advisor in the Bosnia Ministry of Defense for Sarajevo, U.S. Army former intelligence officer, counterintelligence special agents, military strategist, psychological operations, civil affairs, foreign area officer, instructor certification, light weapons specialist, former infantry staff sergeant, master parachutist, airborne, assault climber, special operations combat diver, which my dad never got to get. He always talked about that little badge that he's like, no, there's someone bigger on the block than me, Aaron. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I don't have my little scuba combat badge. And I was like, but you probably could. And a Danish combat and Belgium commando. I mean, again, Robert, Lieutenant Colonel, sir, American patriot, welcome to the SOFREP podcast with me. Thank you for taking your time from Rome. Are you in Rome today?
I'm in Rome, Italy, yes.
That's his voice, everybody. Yes.
No, I just returned from Tangier, Morocco yesterday.
What was going on in Tangier, Morocco?
Yeah, my wife's birthday.
Happy birthday to your wife. Oh, that's great. Okay, perfect. How long have you guys been married?
We've been together for 25 years.
Oh, I love that. I love that. My wife and I hit 25 this year.
Mm-hmm. My wife and I actually met in Yemen.
In Yemen?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's incredible.
I was the head of security for the United Nations in Yemen, and she was a chief technical advisor on a project for the United Nations, FAO, that bettered the lives of women in rural villages.
That's awesome.
Yes,
so the humanitarian effort from you and her, and the things that you guys try to focus on, and putting yourself into these very hostile environments and trying to make peace and sense of it with a security force. Really, a security force or a police force is there just to kind of like set the peace, set the tone, say someone's here if you need help, someone's here in your time of need to try to keep the peace while you're moving back and forth to get your water, to get your food. That's how I see law enforcement in my local Utah Sandy City. Is they're here to protect and serve. When I go eat breakfast and I see them coming into the place, I'll tell the server, hey, I got them. Just put it on my ticket. And they always look around and I'm always like, so having peace, being able to go out and eat, being able to go get water is something that we take for granted so much here, versus other countries where it is a hostile environment. You do have rebel commandos trying to take kidnappings and, prizes of people for ransom. And you put yourself in the thick of all of that.
It was the nature of the job. The job of a United Nations security advisor means putting your life pretty regularly at some degree of risk. Hopefully, measured risk. If you do the job for a while, you learn how to be measured.
When you were going through your initial military enlistment and you got to staff sergeant, I just want to ask a segue here. What turned you to going into the pipeline of a Green Beret? What was that? What did you originally enlist as versus then you became an SF? You know what I mean?
Well, actually, what happened was when I enlisted specifically for Special Forces. I had an enlisted contract for it. So I went to basic, then infantry AIT, jump school, and then was sent to Fort Bragg, to the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center and School, and enter this is before selection and assessment. So to enter phase 1 training, so Camp McCall, so phase 1, phase 2, weapons, phase 3, to try and put it all together. And this is before they had, again, selection and assessment. So it was a different time. But there was one thing that an old friend of mine, a comrade of mine, former Special Forces warrant officer, I ran into him years later. It turned out that we had gone through the Special Forces training together. We both started at the same time. He pointed something out to me that I did not know, and that was that 134 men started phase 1 training. 18 of that starting group completed phase 3. So 18 out of 134. That, from my perspective, was one of the major accomplishments of my life.
Yeah, because you're talking about an 82% drop rate from 100 men. And the song that Barry Sadler sings, 100 men, they'll test today. Only 3 win the Green Beret, There's truth to his song.
It was a tough course. It was a very difficult time for anybody there. But the folks that completed it, in my estimation, were the ones that wanted it the most.
What's up, Dad? That's what I got to say right there. I just think about that. And I took that for granted with my father always walking around with his Green Beret on. And he was always so calm and cool and collected around the house and never really fronted about anything.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
One time we were walking around Hill Air Force Base, going to the clinic before they shut it down, of course. And I was just a younger rad. And we were holding his hand. I was holding his hand, and he had his beret on. He was in his camis. He was walking in, and I said, and an Air Force person was walking out, and they had like a trucker hat on, and it said like TRD whatever on it. And I was like, Dad, why don't they have a Green Beret too? And he just said, come along, and he just pulled me by my hand. Now I know why. Now as an older man in life, I understand that it's not the easiest thing to go through. So to be one of the 18, back in 75, you say?
No, I actually went through Special Forces training, started in 1972, completed in 1973.
1972, 1973. So you guys were wearing all the same Vietnam olive drab gear, all that OD slant pockets, everything like that. That was just
actually at that time we were wearing just the ODs, not the camouflage stuff.
The olive drab OD, the greens.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yes. Yeah, that's what you were. Yeah. And your shiny boots.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I love it. No, I love it. I know. It's so cool, man. You're so cool. I just want you to know, if I had a baseball card of you, I'd want your rookie card. You know what I mean? Could you imagine your card stats? You know what I'm saying? If you had a card, holy cow.
I can't imagine anybody would want my card, but okay.
Yeah, no, it's true. You're great. So here you are commissioning now. You go from a staff sergeant and you're commissioning into a lieutenant colonel. Maybe that was around 1975. Is that correct?
Let me see. 1976 was when I graduated officer candidate school. I was branched in military intelligence. The reason why I was branched in military intelligence was because at that time there was no such thing as Special Forces branch. So I had to go somewhere. I was branched in military intelligence and then decided to go to Ranger School. So myself and my best friend, we went to Ranger School together. And then to military intelligence training out of Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and then reassigned to Fort Bragg in North Carolina to 18th Airborne Corps and the 82nd Airborne Division, my friend Terry, subsequently.
So my dad was out of the 19th group here at Camp Williams in the 80, 81, 82, 83 through the early 90s. Where were you? You were Fort Bragg pretty much the whole time, 5th group?
No. After doing my stint in military intelligence, I went to 5th Special Forces Group, commanded the Special Forces Underwater Operations Detachment.
So cool.
And then became the S2, the intelligence officer, for the 3rd Battalion of 5th Special Forces Group under then Lieutenant Colonel Harley Davis, who just happened to be my company commander at 10th Special Forces Group at Fort Dennison, Massachusetts, and later promoted me to major when he was a major general.
How cool is that, huh?
It was pretty cool. It really was.
That is pretty cool. So combat diver. So like I said, there's always someone on the block that you think you're the big guy, you got your Green Beret, but then there's someone who has a little button on their uniform, and it's got this scuba snorkel. I don't know if you had that, the scuba mask and the snorkels.
Sure.
Yeah, see? And my dad always wanted it because he was a scuba diver.
Mm-hmm. Actually, so was I. I made my first dive. I was trained by a World War II UDT guy in 1968 in San Francisco, California. I made my first dive in Monterey Bay. My father was an enlisted man in the Navy. He was a chief petty officer. I thought he felt a little bit betrayed when I joined the Army instead of the Navy, but I could not get an enlisted contract to go to SEAL training, which was the only kind of training that I was interested in. So I ended up going Special Forces, and I still had the opportunity to get wet.
Yes. Yeah. Come on, Dad. Look at me now, right? Yeah. And so you got your scuba underwater, which means you're really, how long can you hold your breath for when you were in your prime?
Oh, back then? Oh, probably a minute and a half.
That's great.
It was a requirement of the job.
Yes. Well, I mean, I've gone to a hotel and put my head under the pool and tried to hold my head for like what felt like forever, but it was only like 27 seconds. Okay. So,
Takes a little
yeah,
practice.
exactly. And when I was a little young me, my dad would take us up to the base and he would swim laps all day, for that whole time. He'd just swim laps, but he'd put blindfolds on me and my older brother. And then he would drop weights in the 12-foot part of the pool. He's like, okay, now watch them. Okay, now go get them. And he would just sit there doing laps while we sat going down trying to get these weights off the bottom of a pool as just like a 12-year-old.
I understand. The only difference is that the UDT guy from World War II trained me. We did it blacked out, meaning that they put foil on the inside of our mask, and then you had to dive down to the bottom of the pool, which at the deepest end was about 12 feet. And you had to feel around on the bottom until you could find the weight and then bring it back up. It could take a while.
I mean, really, my older brother was really good at it. He would be able to like just go right down, like, right down at those weights and pull them up. And I would always be like, how do I get my buoyancy? How do I get down to the bottom of the pool? It's not the easiest thing to do. No. So, I mean, geez, thanks, Dad. You want to go to the pool with your dad who's a Green Beret? That's what's going to happen, okay? And then he always make us jump off the high dive. We'd always have to step off the high dives. No problem.
One of the things that that struck me about your choice of this particular day for this podcast was that today is the anniversary of the suicide bombing that killed 22 of my friends, my colleagues, and visitors to the UN headquarters in Baghdad in 2003. It was, by any account, the worst day of my life. In one day, I waded through enough blood and gore. It's something I don't think anyone could ever really fully recover from. But I just thought it'd be worthwhile to mention because so many died, and they died needlessly. They died needlessly. The fact was that my office, I was the head of security for the United Nations for all Iraq. My office and all the senior security officers in Iraq concurring with me warned United Nations leadership in Baghdad and in New York that we were under enormous risk, enormous hazard. We anticipated the attack itself. And when it happened, it was a horror to live through that event. And the fact is the first, if memory serves, this is the first suicide bombing of the war in Iraq that later killed so many Americans. And it was designed to kill unarmed United Nations staff. By the way, in the UN at that time, in Baghdad, none of us were carrying guns.
No.
We had no armed guards on our perimeter. We were literally sitting ducks for
just a soft target.
Soft target for the extremists. And they took advantage. And 22 people died as a consequence. And UN senior staff were warned and took limited action.
Really no precautions to try to even put up a barrier or anything around the United Nations building compound to try to,
Actually, I recommended building a perimeter wall, and they approved that. The wall was only partially built at the time of the attack. So it was too late. Too little too late.
You had already seen the situation, though. You were already trying to put something in place to help put a barrier there and get things approved. And
yes. And I did so, luckily, in writing as well as verbally, because later on, after the attack, I have the distinction of being the only senior security officer in the history of the UN to be personally fired by the UN Secretary General.
Was that Kofi Annan?
That's the one. He fired me personally on the front pages of the New York Times. I was at that time in Ethiopia conducting a security risk assessment in a place called Gambela near the Sudanese border. I was told I had been relieved by the Secretary General and I was to return immediately to New York to face action, whatever that meant.
You mean what you had just walked through isn't enough facing the action, your friends, your colleagues? He's not, okay, go ahead.
The bottom line is they were looking for scapegoats. The people
Yep.
who were actually responsible were very senior. UN security officers are, in fact, advisors. We're not decision makers. So we give advice to senior UN staff, leadership, and management, and they either accept it or they don't. The fact is, they ended up playing politics with people's lives. And 22 people paid the price, and 150 were wounded,
Right.
to include my wife. My wife was wounded, medically evacuated, and damn near lost an eye.
I was going to say, you know, the people that are working in the UN on the peacekeeping side of things are like your wife and like, you know, you and everybody's in there trying to like just make sure everything's peaceful. You're not really wanting to have war brought to you, but all of a sudden here it is. You know,
Well,
you have.
We end up working in uncertain environments. So the bottom line is that we enter these uncertain environments where conflict and violence and lawlessness are everywhere eminent. Essentially, we operate in places where the United States Army, in large measure, would not. There's utter lawlessness. Now, if you don't know what lawlessness is like, I also worked in Cambodia during the UNTAC period. And in that period, there were no judges, there were no prisons, there were no police, there was nothing. So literally, you could murder somebody in the middle of town square and nothing would happen to you because there was no one to arrest you. Utter lawlessness. And you have to operate or be able to operate successfully in that kind of environment. That means being a good Boy Scout. Now, what I mean by that is I mean being prepared
Right.
and well prepared for the eventualities that you are likely to face. If you are better prepared than the other guy, the bottom line is that fortune favors those who are well prepared.
Okay, let me just write that down right now. Fortune favors.
That's not new. That's not even original.
Well, yeah, and like a buddy of mine, Big Phil, he's a former SAS guy. He'd be like, "Rad." I'm all, "What?" He's like, "Proper planning prevents piss poor performance."
Exactly.
You know, 7 P's, bro.
It's true. It's true.
So, you know, true story. Okay.
Absolutely. Right.
So your offices were in the same building, or how long? Okay, 2 questions. What was the delivery mechanism for the bombing that happened?
It was
and
a
then
flatbed.
2, how far were you from it to being on target as soon as it happened?
A truck was used, a flatbed truck. The FBI estimated that on board that truck was perhaps a ton, roughly 2,000 pounds of explosive materials was used. So the suicide bomber ran straight into the building and initiated. So a ton of explosives went off. I was on the back side of the building. My offices were on the back side of the building, perhaps 25 meters. But it was a lot of concrete between me and the explosion. But it still took everything out of my office. My wife was working in my outer office. I had one of the few offices that had internet connectivity. She was preparing for a job in northern Iraq for the World Food Program at that time. And
Wow.
unfortunately, there was a glass divider in my office. And all that flying glass, the overwhelming majority of the woundings in that event were a consequence of flying glass, which is the overwhelming
Yeah,
majority. Yeah, the overwhelming majority of the people who died as a consequence of falling concrete and rebar as the building collapsed.
Yeah, so it was just such a boom, and then the whole place shook. Everything
Yes.
blew out of it.
Yes.
Everybody got hit by every debris, and then the building fell. And so your book, Surviving the United Nations, that's kind of what you're talking about. Yes, you've been in a lot of the United Nations, but that is a moment that you did survive through.
It was a double entendre, really. I had to survive literally so I could keep on breathing. And
Right.
two, I had to save my career. I was unjustly accused of incompetence in my duties and responsibilities in Baghdad. I was not. I did my job. So what I ended up doing when I left Ethiopia and returned to New York, I ended up getting into a fight, an administrative legal battle with the Secretary General of the UN. I didn't expect to win, but the fact is that if there's going to be a fight, I'll fight it.
Yeah, I don't see you backing down.
No. So there was no backing down.
No.
So for 7 months, I fought and surprisingly won. I won full reinstatement. I won exoneration for myself and my office and those people that worked with me.
Correct.
Complete exoneration. But it was obvious the overwhelming majority of the evidence that was used by what was later called the Security and Iraq Accountability Panel was from me, my files, my recommendations. Luckily, many of those recommendations had been placed on paper and were a matter of record. So, with so much evidence in my favor, the firing was overturned and I was able to go back to work. But it was to go through that event, to be unjustly blamed for the deaths of those 22 people and over 150 woundings was extraordinarily difficult.
I can only sympathize and just say sorry for your loss. Sorry for the trials and tribulations that you had to be put through, but someone's going to mess with your integrity. They're messing with the wrong bowl because you, in my opinion, have that, like you said, be prepared. You have that mindset. You have that, I want to go through UDT or Special Forces training. You have this mindset of, Deo Presso Liber. You have this mindset, in my opinion, of don't mess with your mindset. And if someone's going to come in and accuse you of something, and again, I'm not the fact guy here. I'm just passionately speaking back to you saying, I would not want to offend you because you said, I'm not going to back down. It took you 7 months to get exonerated. You're a captain of a team, if you will, for like sports, quote unquote, for your team. And you're like, I got this. You guys are going to be exonerated. Watch me work. You put it through and you got them exactly where they believed in you the whole time. Your team, right? So as a coach or as a captain or leadership, lieutenant colonel or, civilian as a UN envoy leader, you're that captain. They believed in you. They went to bat for you. They played their positions for you, and you did the right thing by exonerating that situation. I just want to say, good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. And I hope that we can let this kind of put that out there on the show, don't mess with the man's integrity or morals. I'm just going to tell you, right? Okay, now listen. I know Green Berets are really dialed in. They can do a lot of different things, and he's a trained combat diver as well. But at the end of the day, some of that resume was humanitarian effort that you do. I'm just saying, bro.
Actually, interesting. My soldier career lasted almost 26 years. And essentially, the key requirement of a soldier is the ability to take someone else's life. Our job is about killing.
100%.
And there's no way to make it pretty. The job of the United Nations Security Advisor is the mirror opposite. It's about the preservation of life. Of the two, I have to say that I felt good about the job that I did, because I know that people are alive today because of the job I did in Sierra Leone, in West Africa, in Yemen,
Exactly.
in Baghdad, in Iraq, and some of the other jobs that I did in Palestine. They're alive today because of the job I did, and there's no feeling better that I can imagine. No medals, no badges, no letters of commendation or appreciation. Nothing matters as much as the knowledge that I have been responsible for saving lives. That's a great feeling.
That's a wonderful feeling. I, I want you to sign my rookie card. I know I like to make a little smile here and there about stuff. It's just who I am. I think that I believe in that mission.
So do I.
You know,
And
like do unto others attitude. Yeah.
And it was a privilege, it really was. It was a privilege and it was an honor for me to be able to serve in the United Nations in that capacity, despite the fact that I was used badly by the leadership of the United Nations. The fact
Yes.
is, I feel very proud of my United Nations service. I worked in some tough neighborhoods and I survived, and
Yeah.
others survived with me. And I'll take that with me to my grave.
100%. You're awesome. I want to be on your team. I just want you to know that if you ever need someone that's furry and bearded out of Utah, 6'5", okay, you just let me know. All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you.
Yes. And I prepare every day. I box every day. I go to the gym every morning. So, proper planning, right?
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah. No, you're great. And I just want to touch base on a piece of your CV or your resume
Sure.
that I read over. It says that you were in Palestine and
Yes.
Jordan, and that you helped set up, security details in Palestine between 2008 and 2010. Am I getting that right?
What happened was I was hired by UNRWA to be their head of security. And they made an offer that I could hardly refuse. They said, you will have no staff and no budget. That's the offer. Okay, we want you to be responsible for institutional security in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan, and you have no staff and no budget. And I said, that sounds like a challenge. So I took the job. I took the job. I hired staff, I trained staff, and I was able to finally convince the organization to create a budget for security-related matters. Unfortunately, I was in the job for less than 2 years before I was selected to be chief of the Middle East and North Africa at UN headquarters in New York. I say, well, it became a tough time because what happened subsequently was what is now colloquially called the Arab Spring. And the Arab Spring
Right.
resulted in me and my staff having to support 16 offices in the field, but we had to evacuate 5 different countries over a period of 6 months due to violence in the streets of Yemen, Egypt, Bahrain, Syria. It got nasty after a while, and we had to get some of our staff out of there. It was a tough time.
It really rised up in Egypt. It really like kicked off.
Well, what happened was when I was, again, UN headquarters in New York, the security at UNDSS didn't have at that time a crisis coordination center. So we didn't have a center for doing all that. So I ended up conducting a lot of business from my apartment in Manhattan. My wife kicked me out of our bed because the phone calls started coming in about 2 o'clock in the morning because of the time difference.
Right.
So I ended up sleeping on the couch for literally weeks, and sometimes I spent a lot of time on the couch.
Yeah.
Okay, because I had to answer the phone. I was chief of the Middle East and North Africa. Okay, I got 16 regional offices. Things are going bad. They needed to get in touch with me, and somebody had to pick up the telephone. After 2 years in that job, I was pretty much wrung out. And my boss, at my request, made me chief security advisor for the country of Indonesia.
Wow. Yeah, so your sleep schedule, let me ask you something. Did you really ever get a full night's sleep, or were you just always, no, you didn't?
No.
So it can take its toll on you mentally.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 hours of sleep is at least some type of REM sleep, even if you get 2 hours straight.
I understand. And it was just, the difference was when you're at headquarters in New York, you're making decisions to impact people's lives, as opposed to being downrange and having people point guns at you. Of the two things, it was easier being downrange. It really was, because your decisions made in New York directly impact a lot more people's lives. And you end up second guessing yourself more than you can ever imagine. And every decision can cost lives, or it can cost a hell of a lot of money. In order for the United Nations to evacuate a country, it can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars and turn people's lives upside down. It is a very, very difficult decision to make.
You've had so many decisions to make. You've had so many decisions to make. Just so many. You went into Palestine with no money, with no staff, and said, I got this.
Actually, I just said it was a challenge.
Yeah, you're like, I like a challenge, Yeah, obviously. Are you still like staying, physically fit? Are you still doing PT to yourself daily? Where are you at right now in that regiment? You're hitting 70?
Actually, I'm 73 years old. And as you mentioned in my resume, in the last few years, I've done consultancies in Lebanon, Ukraine, and Azerbaijan over the Nagorno-Karabakh War. So even in my 70s, I'm managing to stay active, and I like that. I like that. I like the feeling of being useful. And at the same time, I've got physical issues like every Green Beret my age. Okay? We've all got bad knees. Both of my shoulders are titanium. Both of them.
Service related.
Yeah. So both of my shoulders are made out of titanium. Every time I go through an airport magnetometer, okay, I have to be strip searched because they're looking for the metal on me, and I'm trying to, no, it's the titanium in my shoulders, okay? And I busted my back in a parachuting accident in the early 90s. And that is giving me more and more trouble as I age. However, I work out every single day. I'm in the gym every single day, and when I'm not in the gym, I'm in the pool doing exercises in the pool. And I do a stretching regimen in order to keep my back from taking me down. So the bottom line is I'm still able to walk, talk, and communicate. I do have the opportunity to speak from time to time. I've written several articles for SOFREP magazine, for the Army Times, for the Military Times, for the Marine Corps Gazette, for Parameters. I think I've been published in just about every significant military publication in America. So I actually took the time to count all the different places where I published, and there's been over 50 individual publications that have thought my writing worthy of consideration for print. That's another thing I feel very, very good about.
And that is a great segue to talk about, again, your Surviving the United Nations that you've written, which is available, right? You can pick that up online.
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, okay?
Yeah.
You can put my name in any browser, anywhere, and all that stuff comes up, plus it's on my website. But the bottom line is, the book, if you're interested, you go to the website and click on the reviews that I've gotten from some pretty senior people, to include the former administrator of Iraq, Paul Bremer, Ambassador Paul Bremer, former Chief of Staff of the Army, Pete Schoonmaker, who's my boss at the Joint Special Operations Command, Bill Garrison, who's famous for the Black Hawk Down incident. He was the commanding general for that when we were in JSOC. I've gotten some pretty damn good reviews. It seems like I achieved what I wanted to achieve and set the record straight, but was able to do so without boring anyone. So I seem to get high marks for having written a book that's not boring. And if that's the case, I'm happy.
You should be happy. You should be happy. And sad, because the book does touch on some sensitive situations, like what happened, 22 years ago today?
Yeah.
Today's like the 22nd. So today, I don't usually date my episodes. I like a timeless episode. However, it's August 19th that you and I have gotten together today to talk about this. And so when this goes on, it might be a week or two from now. Mm-hmm. However, it doesn't negate the serious anniversary and respect that we have for not just them, but for all of our veterans and service personnel that have gone over there or gone anywhere and just paid that ultimate sacrifice. And, I'm sorry about your colleagues specifically, I didn't want you to be the scapegoat. I, as an American taxpayer, was like, no.
Nobody wants to be the scapegoat.
That's higher up the chain, bro. You should look in the mirror. Whoever fired you should look in the mirror.
Well, he's already passed on. He's already passed on.
Yes. Yes, sir.
But the fact is that SOFREP again was kind enough to publish one of my articles on the what I call the over 2-decade United Nations cover-up, the Security and Iraq Accountability Report that was done by a committee of well-meaning individuals has never seen the light of day. It was never released. It was considered UN confidential by the then Secretary General Kofi Annan, and to this day, it has never been released. And in my opinion, it must be released. The people who lost loved ones that day deserve to know why their loved ones had to die.
Huh.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah. Let it out. Get it out. I mean, I feel like a Hollywood movie's needed. Like just something to like just put a spotlight on the situation. It's like, I'm thinking in my head while you're talking, like storyboarding it. I'm like, okay, I need a building. I need a wide shot. I need a flatbed truck. I'm like thinking, how do you bring this, to let the masses understand the situation so that the spotlight is on? I'm just saying.
I understand.
Yes.
Anything that brings pressure on the United Nations.
Right.
My articles, my podcast, this podcast, anything that brings the truth to people can potentially act or provide pressure on the Secretary General of the United Nations, who with his pen, a signature, can release the Security Iraq Accountability Panel report to public, and should be. The United Nations is supposed to be transparent.
I was just going to say transparency. I thought we all talk about it.
How about that? Only we're not. And all it takes is a signature of the Secretary General of the United Nations to reduce that or to make that public.
Sure.
I'd like to see it.
And why not? Why not just make it public? What is there to hide?
Exactly my point. I think there's something to hide.
If there's something so tragic, and we can say that, if it is so tragic, then just let us read about it, and we'll see. We'll it'll be out there. But if it's, 100% agreed. Release it. Release the documents.
I believe so.
Oh yeah, no, we have listeners all over the world that hit me up an email from. I want to be on your show, Rab, but I'm still working, things like that. And I just want to say, keep going, keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, they can't talk about things, but they're listening. So, if a little seed can be planted, and you guys can take a look at those files and just sign that little signature.
Well, interestingly, when I published when I published the book, every UN staff member, when you publish your book, you're supposed to send it to the Secretary General of the United Nations for clearance.
Of course.
I did not. I published my book. And the reason why I didn't send it to the Secretary General for clearance is because, of course, there's no way in hell the Secretary General would have cleared the book. Now, after the book was published, I received a letter signed by a high UN official threatening me with the possibility of legal action. My response was, please,
Yes.
please take me to court. I want to go to court because I have all kinds of evidence that in my possession. And if you walk into a courtroom with me, you're going to have to tell the truth.
That's right.
You're going to have to come up with something and explain your actions or the actions of senior people or lack thereof at a time when it was critically important. Now, I never heard from them again. And they never sent me another threatening letter. And the first book was published 5 years ago, so now it's been out for about 6 years. I never heard back from them. And I suspect they do not want to meet me in court.
No, because, they'd have to be deposed. There'd have to be, evidence turned over and like files and stuff. It's kind of funny how people are willing to threaten lawsuits on people, but yet they're not willing to follow through with it.
They don't want to meet me in court. They don't.
No.
I've got all the evidence, and I would love to bring it all to light. So if anybody out there is listening, if you have any influence, please feel free to take me to court.
There you have it. Robert Adolph.
Thank you.
Right there. Okay. Yeah, you're welcome. I can't believe we've been talking for an hour, and to my listener, thank you so much if you've listened to the whole show. And if you've tuned in for your first time and you've just caught us talking, welcome to SOFREP Radio, right? What a great guest. Robert, you're a welcome addition. I'm so happy that you and Guy at SOFREP, our editor, he's like, yo, Rad, you got to talk to Robert, man. I think he's someone that you guys will just go back and forth with. And I was like, let's go right away. And we kicked off, dude. You were like, let's go. I was like, this time of day. You're like, I'm in Rome. I was like, where? Okay, what time is that? I'm Mountain Standard. And I would like to just extend, the formal invitation to come back on the show and talk further about anything else that's on your mind, and if there's any new book or, you are working on another book, etc., you're just welcome. You got so many stories. I first of all, thank you for your service to this country and to the nation. I really, from me to you, appreciate that. And I think I just want to say that.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to appear on your show. I'd love to come back at almost any time. This is actually,
yes.
No, this is enjoyable. I enjoyed the opportunity. I enjoyed the opportunity to speak to you. And if you're interested, I write about those things that interest me. And if you look at the things that have appeared recently in SOFREP, that I think now Guy has been publishing something of mine just about every week. So if there's a topic there that interests you or you think might interest your viewers, send me a buzz, okay? I'm happy to talk about any of these subjects.
100%. It's that easy. We are now connected. I got your email, and it's just like family, okay? It's like Olive Garden, huh? You're here, okay? You're family, all right? You're a SOFREP. You're here, okay? I think you're great. I just want to let my guests know something. We just met today. Mm-hmm. And I'm almost willing to say I love you, okay?
Look, I won't mention that to my wife.
Yes. No, and I just want to say happy anniversary on your 25 years, okay, together. And Yeah, you just keep being you, and you just keep doing you, and you just keep at it. And thanks for being. I always like to get better from my guests, and you have just made me a better person.
Thank you so much for your time. And
Thank
again
you
for
so
the
much.
invitation.
You're very welcome. And to my listener, thank you for listening. If you have a comment, go ahead and comment down below. If you want to go check out, I believe it's robertbruceadolph.com.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
robertbruceadolph.com. Go check that out. He's got all of his information there. You can read about Robert, get to know him a little more. Check out his book, which is Surviving the United Nations. It's out everywhere. And when you buy the book, when you download it, get it on your Kindle or wherever on Amazon, leave a review. All right. The
Nice.
authors really do. Yeah, right. See, he just went like, oh, yeah, rad. Yes, the review. I'm supposed to say that, but you said it for me, bro. So leave a comment down below on them, okay? And even on SOFREP, if you read one of his articles, just say, hey, Bob, cool insight, bro. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
It means a lot to hear that feedback.
It does.
Again, it does. On behalf of Brandon Webb, who runs SOFREP.com, on behalf of my producer, Callum, who sits in the back and makes sure that everything gets put together and makes it all look great, and Guy, our editor-in-chief at SOFREP.com, for recommending such a personable talent and a Green Beret at that. Flattered, honored.
Thank you, Red.
The sky's blue because your shirt is blue, and that's why. That's why
Thank you so
infantry.
much. Thank you.
Okay, and on behalf of Rad, saying peace.
You've been listening to SOFREP Radio.